The first part of You Season 4 has dropped on Netflix and it's causing quite a stir, so fans are excited to know what happens next. In the second part of the show, Joe won't be hell-bent on disposing of the bodies of people, but he'll be saving them. That sounds really unlikely, but he has finally vowed to be good, and that sounds like a whole genre shift for the show. But we hope that you didn't miss the Easter egg at the end of the new teaser. We actually saw Love Quinn sitting in a chair, alive and breathing. This is the twist that no one was expecting, and it changes everything in the show. Season 4 started in a way that most people didn't really expect, because it seemed like Joe is finally getting back to a normal life. So much so that he even got a great job at a very posh university, and the plus point was that the job kept him busy and the people around him safe. However, he soon found himself in the spotlight after hanging out with some of the richest people London had to offer. From here, the story took a dramatic turn when people in his social circle suddenly started losing their lives, and they were really high-profile victims, so the police were doing everything they could to find the culprit. Joe knew that it wasn't him, but the man who was taking the lives of these people was actually replicating the methods of Joe. And by the end of U4 Part 1, we saw the man who's behind the whole act. He puts forward a very interesting demand that practically changes the direction of the whole show. We were thinking all along that the man is against Joe and is trying to take some kind of revenge by framing him. But as it turns out, the mystery man is obsessed with him and has been stalking him for so long. It's almost like he was trying to pull a Joe Goldberg on the man himself. But the man seems inspired by him and offered to join his team and take more lives while being on his team. He added that if Joe refuses to join him in the bloody spree, then he would continue taking the lives of innocent people around Joe and will pin it all on him. So Part 1 basically ended with Joe deciding to save the people and end this sociopath for good. He is prepared to take him down because he doesn't really want to join forces with him. We all knew from the very start that Joe had a pretty quirky moral compass, and being partners with a man who has taken so many lives doesn't really sit right with him, despite his previous track record. When we saw Love Quinn in the last seasons, we thought that Joe had finally met his match. However, she wasn't as smart as Joe, and hence lost her life. But this new man named Reese isn't going to be just another pawn in Joe's game. In fact, he's so powerful that he can take down Joe at any moment. He's just as crazy as Joe, and that's why it feels fitting to finally see them against each other in Part 2. It'll be really interesting to see Joe take down a man who's as powerful as Reese. In fact, Reese is also running for mayorship now, so if he wins, things will get really out of hand for Joe. Reese is also really witty and plans everything just the way that Joe does, so being one step ahead of him isn't going to be easy. And the cameo from Love Quinn is very tempting, but that doesn't seem like anything more than Joe's hallucination, because there's no chance that she got out of that house alive in the last season. Even the showrunner confirmed earlier that Love is actually gone and she won't be coming back like Candice did. But Joe might see her frequently in the new episodes because of his mental baggage and the trauma. It is also possible that Joe continues to see Love and she convinces him to surrender because he doesn't have any other choice. But she most definitely is in his head, because we've seen how mentally unstable Joe can be. For now, it sounds like Part 2 of Season 4 could go either way, whether Joe will go down for the crimes that Reese has committed, or he'll tackle Reese in his traditional fashion. But some of the fans think that there should be some kind of accountability for Joe in the second part, because we can't really glorify a man like Joe after what he has done. Joe could also become the villain of his own story by joining forces with Reese after realizing that he has no way out. And if he decides to do that, he'll be caught at some point, because Reese won't stop his cruel and bloody spree and will take down anyone who comes in his way. We know that Joe has an emotional baggage with him, and that's why he acts the way he does. But we don't know the story of Reese yet, and Part 2 might give us a sneak peek on his sinister plans and why he is the way he is. There's another fan theory for Joe that he'll be locked up by Reese in a remote place where he'll start seeing Beck, Candice and Love. Joe will eventually realize what he's done, and the trauma of that will be so unbearable that Joe will go crazy. But a lot of people want Joe behind bars for everything that he has done, because he seems to be getting away with it so far. There's also a very obvious love angle between Kate and Joe. The two didn't get along very well in the beginning, but as it turns out, she surrendered in front of his sociopathic charm. She even asked him out, and if Kate continues to get closer to Joe, she'll put herself in grave danger. Joe's romantic partners don't tend to live that long, and with Reese in the picture, Kate could be on the verge of losing her life. But Joe will do everything in his power to save his people from Reese this time. And it's not just Reese that Kate has to avoid, but Roald as well, who's really jealous and a borderline psychopath. So by the looks of it, Kate's chances of survival are pretty thin in the second part. Joe left his own son with Dante and his husband, and it's obviously taken a toll on his mental health. So some people even think that with the stress of Reese always being over his head and being away from his son, Joe will break down and surrender surrender himself. It is possible that his infant son gets caught up in the whole chaos in London, but that's the last thing that Joe wants. People were thinking that Joe only has the choice of either joining forces with Reese or ending his life, but that's not it. Everything might change for the show because there's a chance that Joe confesses all of his crimes to the police and also exposes Reese to stop him from hurting any more people. It is also strange that Reese saved Joe's life from Roald, and it's a little twisted that he's making Joe go crazy, but isn't letting anyone else harm him. So it could be revealed in the new part that why exactly is Reese doing all of this, and does he have a past relationship with Joe? And if we do find some connection between the two, it will completely change the way we've been looking at both the characters all along. Another very interesting twist in the story will be that Joe will finally see how wrong everything he's been doing actually is. He has found a way to justify all of his acts in the past, and he continues to think of himself as a good man. But once he realizes that Reese is just the same as him, he might go into an existential crisis. Not only this, but we're also going to see a lot more people from Joe's inner circle losing their lives because Reese isn't going to stop anytime soon. And as the cases will be so high profile, the info will get quite public, and Joe might also have to give his statements to the police. It will put him under the radar, and for a man with Joe's record, it's only the beginning of his end. Besides, we haven't seen what Ellie and Marianne are up to. Although Joe forced Ellie to move to New York in the last season, it seems very likely that she finds out that Joe is in London and comes knocking on his door. He'll definitely get into big trouble if something like this happens. But the real threat seems to be Marianne. She was the reason why Joe came to Europe, but their story doesn't really go anywhere. She knows everything about Joe, even the fact that he took Love's life. Her character seems like the final move of chess the creators will use to bring Joe down. Marianne could actually be a witness and reveal everything that Joe has done in the past to the press. It will make things a lot easier for the police. The story can also end with Kate saving Joe from Reese, because we know by now that Kate is very powerful and a lot richer than any of her pals. So she could use her power and connections to save Joe from this mess. And it's not like it's impossible. Love Quinn also used her wealth in the past to save Joe and herself and designed a whole new life in Madre Linda, so Kate and Joe could do the same. And although all of his previous love interests have met an unfortunate fate, the fifth time sounds like a charm. But some of the theories about the new episodes are that Joe will lose his loved one in the hands of Reese, and it will be the last nail in the coffin for him. He'll probably take his own life, and that would be the end of the man who has put an end to so many innocent lives. Some of the fans think that even putting Joe in jail will be too easy for him. He needs to go through the pain that his victims went through. He needs to feel that trauma of losing someone. So Joe taking his own life sounds like a very heartbreaking but satisfactory ending, because how far would he run after making a mess? Besides, you won't have to wait very long to find out about the new episodes, because You Season 4 Part 2 will air on the 9th of March. A lot of people were wondering lately why Netflix has divided the new season into 2 parts, but it seems like they tend to do it with their hit shows like Stranger Things to build more suspense. So what do you think will happen to Joe Goldberg in You Season 4 Part 2? Let us know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.